Hello, good morning. I'm very pleased to be here with you. My name is Piotr Kolodziej. I work for Enterprise DB Corporation. And I joined EDB 2 years ago. It was my 50th anniversary of my life. I made a kind of gift for myself to leave closed source environment of the databases and start with open source databases. I think it was one of the best things I could do. Not because this world of proprietary database is technologically, let's say, obsolete. They are very great. But terms and conditions for the customers are not very friendly. And I think it is a good choice for me and hopefully for you, for the community and for customers I work with. So, just an introduction. I will try to look at this, let's say, picture from different point of view. Just let's try to make an exercise to sit ourselves in the position of enterprise architect of your customer, of some decision maker who makes the decision about technology. And just they have a couple of questions to answer. And while they are talking to their CEOs, to their top management level, they are talking about the categories of key assets of the organization. And what is the key asset of the organization? Something which is essentially necessary to run the business, to run the mission of the organization. You may provide several answers for sure physical assets. If you are a manufacturer, you need to have the machinery, all the supplies to run your business. Computer system and networks, we know. Hardware, software, configuration data, appropriate architecture, know-how, software, intellectual property, whatever it means. It can be a licensing, like in a previous speech. People, so-called human resources. I don't like this name, but you know, people who knows how to do the things. Customers and relationships, and what we miss. Of course, in financial assets. We miss information. Just imagine, if we are target of ransomware attack, what we will lose? What will be our loss, which will be most painful? Software configuration? Yes, it will, but you can restore. The thing you cannot restore is your data if you don't have proper backup, for instance. If you lose your backups and your data, you are done, right? So your information is the most critical asset. You are the only entity that have the correct information about yourself, the most correct. I'm not saying that the data quality is 100%, never it is. So what are the dimensions of the information? The business data. All about the business, about the processes, payments, about all the activities. In an academy, let's say the information of the students, about the lectures, exams, and the factory about the process, about planning, the resources, the warehousing, the items, and so on. But the information to be understood requires the model. The model is your intellectual property and should be your intellectual property. If not, you have problem. And how to interpret the data. And what is also important is a part of application or integration logic, which knows how to work with data. So this is kind of formula, know-how, written in the code and the specification and so on. So these are the aspects. And just imagine you are managing your information assets, right? So what does it mean? You can manage efficiently all those things. This is the technical ability. It's one of the, let's say, dimensions of this process is not the only thing, because from the security information officer standpoint, we will say the information must be controlled, must be confidential, integral, available, and that's true. That's fully true. But we look from the little bit different perspective, remembering of others, right? Technical ability. What does it mean, technical ability? So I found a couple of definitions which are not strictly IT-oriented, not written by software specialists, but by managers and some politicians. Oh. The capability and freedom. Capability and freedom. This is the concept from early 80s, formulated by Australian politicians that try to figure out what is kind of technological sovereignty for the business they try to run. So the capability that we can efficiently utilize the technology because we know how, and the freedom, we are not blocked by artificial, let's say, unreasonable limitations. That it is needed for industrial innovation, ability to operate. Yeah? This is the freedom, capability and freedom. Second definition that I really like is more poetic. It is French guy, it is French businessman who write it down. It is the control of our present and of our destiny. Many different meanings, right? Control the present and our destiny. So our choices, how we manage the information, are, let's say, somehow defining the ability to control the situation, but also drives the path for the future. Either we can grow and we can leverage the information assets and we can solve the real challenges with the information itself. It's good enough piece of problem to solve instead of fighting with some limitations, right? So as they manifest, control the present and destiny, as both of them manifest and orient themselves through the use of technologies and computer networks. It is very applicable to ability to process the information and think forward. All right. It was an introduction. So, in this context, how can we look from this position? How can we look at the Postgres? First thing, which I like, is the fact that open source databases are taking more and more share of overall data managed by database management systems. So the dominance of commercial licensed software is now a little bit below the, let's say, metrics about below the amounts managed by open source software. Is it a reason to triumph? Not yet. Not yet. I'm not saying that there is any reason to triumph, because at the end this is the customer choice and customer perception, how they can create their own future and how can they manage the present state, right? So from my humble experience, started when Linux could be installed on 10 diskettes, 1.2 megabytes. I would say the most challenging, one of the most challenging layer of the all system stack to be implemented in open source or be converted by open source and be ruled by open source is the database management system. I'm not saying that it is due to the weakness of open source. It's not, they are not weak. But the commercial RDBMS were mature early enough to dominate the market in the 90s. Because the domination really had the, let's say, the final point, reached the final point. Because when we look from the context of the questions of the database management systems through the perspective of 70s, we can enumerate a lot of them. For instance, is relational database capable to handle commercial systems instead of network database managed by different models, like network databases, hierarchical databases? It was the question from 70s. The question from 80s was the question whether a mini computer can run a relational database. Is it possible to run on PDP-11 instead of mainframe? Right? Who remember both? PDP-11, I would say this device has the power of many of PDP-11 and capacity. Yeah, many. I can't even calculate how much more. The question that I really faced, it was 20 years ago. I worked for Oracle those days, and there were some banks in my country which were running Oracle on Windows, 32 bits, and the customers, faced a memory address problem because the capability to use shared memory and the memory private to the database threads, which were related to sessions, was limited by 2 gigabytes limits, point. And there was the end of scalability. So I asked them, guys, there is a distribution for Linux, just migrate to Linux. Why not? No. Why? This is open source. We need to migrate to either HPUX or AIX. We need to use commercial system. Oh, guys. They made such decisions. And all of a sudden, a couple of years after, I realized they no longer have Windows servers running databases on Windows. All Intel-based databases were running on Linux. So something magic happened. Yeah. So there is some kind of questions are, let's say, answered by the market, by the common practice. And some ideological, let's say, disputes has limited sense. It is the choice. It is the choice. There should be one of the first few brave early adopters that they demonstrate it is possible, and nothing happens, and it is okay. So nowadays is the question: can we handle the workload compared to top proprietary databases? In many cases, we can. In some cases, maybe we cannot, and we should not. But we should be able to formulate our strategy. Maybe we don't need to have behemoths of hundreds of terabytes or petabytes anymore. For why we have so big databases? In many cases, is the result of bad data modeling, compensated by huge configurations, which are expensive. And this is also a lesson for us in open source community. The key decisions really matter. If you expect that your system is will not handle more than few gigabytes, maybe you don't care about normalization. Maybe you don't care about how to put the attributes to separate tables or normalize or denormalize, put one-to-one relationships. You don't care. But if you expect to run a large scale, you should really care, and you should learn. We should learn. We should leverage the practice how to use relational databases, because the technology can be changed, but some common principles of optimal usage will remain. Let's use it. This knowledge is available. All right, so after that, let's bring back about Postgres. Postgres is now perceived as one of the drivers where companies can transform just to re-implement key processes on open source technology stack. Maybe it's no sense to attack all the proprietary databases and make just one-to-one migration. In some cases, it may be the relevant solution. In some cases, maybe it's good to re-architect the business process and re-implement them. It depends. But anyway, new functionality, new redeployments, the de facto standard is using open source, including databases. And the data is an essential part of your system. It's essential because it is all about your business, or business of your customer. And now it's the time for open source database. No longer need to use proprietary databases for new deployments at all. According to Stack Overflow survey from the last year, PostgreSQL is most preferred database by professional developers. The funny thing is the beginners start with another technology, which also was open source. But due to some reason, professionals prefer a little bit more PostgreSQL. It will be interesting to see the next measures, next surveys. Maybe it will show some trend. I will not interpret it by just 1 year measure. Postgres is used by many companies. Probably, if we ask, do you know any company that doesn't use Postgres? Will we show somebody? I don't know, maybe very few. The question is that it is shadow IT, it is an official IT, whether it is a core system or it is somehow supportive system, what is the criticality. The good thing for us is that more and more businesses are using Postgres in critical systems. One of key payment services operator uses Postgres distributed for maximal availability of the data to run the business without any interruption. US government, and including US Army, is also using Postgres. They publish also security standards, how to configure Postgres in the environment. So if they publish, they really approve, then this is the guideline. What is very important? Postgres is not just a technology. We are at the technical university, people learn technology, but it is also very important for your customers that this technology is widely adopted. First, why it is important? Just imagine they want to make some project. They don't have enough staff. They want to hire consultants from external party for some time. And it is very basic factor. Can I find the people with the relevant skills with the reasonable price and the reasonable time to be available on the board of the project? If this is such a possibility, more than welcome. This is one of the simple decision criteria where the enterprise architects will say this technology is okay for our corporate standard or is maybe used only by exception. Yeah? So more specialists you have on the market, it is easier for corporates to accept the solution, right? Because they can maintain, they can consume it, if they have the, let's say, rights to modify and develop application, and sometime they will make it then for themselves, so they can maintain for the long life cycle of the application. That's why the appropriate technology stack really matters. They don't like the exotic things that they cannot find the specialists for. And last section is about EDB, the company I work for, and how EDB supports the present and the future by concentrating on Postgres. EDB is a pure Postgres company. This is our core business. We don't do anything more. So EDB is one of the, I think it is top contributor to the Postgres code. So we have code committers, code engineers that submits the changes, the new versions of Postgres, and we pay them to work for the community. This is, if you go to postgresql.org site, you will see the names of key representatives, key contributors, and there are many others. So this is our core business. So we work with the community. So we don't own, we cannot own. There are very powerful actors in this community. Let's name them: Microsoft, Amazon, Google, many others, right? So we work in this environment, and it is very good because everybody looks at everybody's hands. That's why it improves the quality of the final product. This is really, really supporting the innovation. So we are, as a company, we are committed to the Postgres since 2008. So we have quite nice track record, and we contributed to few and more. These are the key, let's say, functionalities based on Postgres, but there will be much more. So let's name heap on tuples, which are essential since 2008 for the performance of DML. This is EDB contribution. Merge SQL statement last year. This is also EDB contribution. So our business is to support customers with the mission-critical support developers, to be in the projects, and we have over 1,500 enterprise customers worldwide. So we can support both community Postgres, standard Postgres you download from postgresql.org with some extensions, with some add-ons. We also provide extra proprietary extensions that are intended to manage the data, are not intended to grab the access to the data. Or there is very important. This is not intrusive to the data. You can decide to leave these extensions and continue on pure version. And of course, this is also the question of of your PostgreSQL deployment, which extensions you are going to use. If you decide one day to use exotic extensions from exotic vendor, this will be your dependency. When you go on the standard, you will depend on the standard. So our mission is to provide the freedom of choice, ability to run Postgres in various deployment models. Whatever you want to go on-prem, fine. We can go on-prem. If you go to cloud, we support a couple of models. It can be deployed on infrastructure as a service. We don't set artificial, I would say, limitations. You can run on any cloud. We know how to calculate the subscriptions if you want to subscribe anything from us. So we will not be the barrier for that. You can run Postgres in containers and purely on Kubernetes. We started the initiative called Cloud Native PG, Cloud Native Postgres. So it is an open source operator for Kubernetes, so that you will run Postgres inside Kubernetes cluster managed by the Kubernetes main with setting up the replication, high availability, and so on. Just fully declaratively using the immutable application image you download from our distribution site. you can run also on OpenShift if you want. So you can also leverage public cloud on Amazon, on Azure, and ask us to run cloud managed service. So these are functionally the same Postgres engines with the same functionality, and you decide what you want, what is your goal. You can easily change the cloud provider. You can easily go for multi-cloud deployment with primary site on one cloud vendor in one region and slave site on another region in another cloud provider. So we also support extra dimensions to the standard Postgres. So if you want to go for enterprise-grade solution, you can talk to us. We can provide you the offer. Our extension available for proprietarized offer subscription is transparent data encryption. So these are the examples how can we support. If you want to run pure standard Postgres with 24/7 mission critical support, it is also our mission to help. Last but not least, you can run multi-regional configurations using logical replication between the regions. This is the thing you can make highly resilient configurations with high availability in one region, using multiple availability zones with the replication to the different regions with different topologies. This is also our specialty. So, but these are just the ideas to have in mind. But the question is, what is your customer or your solution really looking for? So these are variety of possibilities, and we are committed and concentrated and focused on deliver business innovation for you and customers. And we really like you to be effective at the end, provide the capability and freedom for you and for your customers to control the present and the destiny of any information you or they manage. So this is our mission. And all of these may be yours. Thank you very much. Because I'm in Croatia, I will end up by hvala lijepa.